Welcome everybody to the next episode of the Cannabis Review. I'm delighted to be joined on this episode by Paul Finnegan, who's a founder and product director at Naturecan. How are you keeping today, Paul?
Really good, Owen. Thanks very much for having me on.
I'm delighted to have you on, mate. You guys are one of the stars of the show in the UK CBD world at the moment, so it's always great to talk to the top companies in the industry. Do you maybe want to give everybody a quick 60-second overview of how you found yourself at Naturecan and founding that with your other partner?
Definitely, yes. So my sort of CBD journey started about 5 years ago when I first started looking into the product and seeing that it was looking like it was being legalized and in Europe in 2018, obviously. So I went out there, looked at sort of how we were going to set up a supply chain, basically, that was going to be a little bit future-proofed on the THC side because it was a bit high over in the US at the time, the sort of limits and everything. Well, it still is. So I set up a supply agreement over in Oregon, over in the States, and then luckily met Andy Duckworth, who's my partner. He was the CEO of MyProtein. So he built that business to, 350 million turnover, fully globalized in all the different countries. And he jumped on board and we managed to get into, first of all, the UK, then set something up in Germany, Ireland, expanded into a few more spots, and eventually now we're at sort of 45 countries trading CBD.
It's an incredible old story. I'm sure you've had your hair pulled out dealing with the Irish laws that we've got over here. We won't talk too much about that.
Yeah, we operated in Ireland from the start as well, and we saw that it was, a little bit difficult. People were having issues with, I think there was a big sort of raid a few years ago on one of the big high street stores, and
Collins as well.
Yeah, well, that made us concentrate our mind on making sure that every bit of these products were sort of to those regulations, and that was one thing that we did from the start, where that was always the worry that when you're dealing with controlled drugs like the THC element of it, and if you want to deal in all the different countries, the best way is to stay as low as possible. So we've always developed the product to keep getting lower LOQs on THC, because that's the trip up in every country, if you go over that limit, basically. But Ireland especially, very hot on it.
Yeah, that's it. It seems to vary across Europe. As much as they've got the set standard of 0.02 or 3%, Ireland seems to have a no holds barred that it's 0% to THC completely. The topic I brought you on, I want to talk today about, is the cannabis supply chain. Can you maybe answer a couple of questions on this? First one is basically, where do you think the majority of CBD is sourced from currently available on the market? Is it North America? Is it Eastern Europe? Is it Central Europe? Where do you think is the main market for CBD?
The main supply, so the raw ingredient, is from the States, in my opinion. There is obviously some suppliers in Eastern Europe as well that have built up over the last couple of years, but because of the length of time that they've been doing it in the States and the competitive pricing, the price of the biomass, a lot of it is coming from North America still. Just as an aside from that, I was over in Thailand just before Christmas, because obviously that market's all opened up now. And the pricing over there is extremely expensive still for raw ingredients. So the biomass is incredibly expensive. All of these extractors have just invested, 5-6 million into their facility and trying to recoup some of those, the capital expenditure from that. So it's incredibly expensive initially in these markets, but as they mature, obviously with scale and everything else, they start coming down in price. That's why I think that the US has still got a good hold, because it's very competitively priced, but the quality is good as well.
Okay, very good. How important is extraction to the process, and who do you think are the best territory in the world when it comes to the extraction side of things?
So again, because the US have been doing it for so long, and all extractors are definitely not created equally. I've been to sort of 25. We're very close to our extractors. Work exclusively over with IAH in Oregon. They've got machines that are from Rotochrome, which is a European business, and they deal in absolute specialist purification. So you're getting to parts per million of each product or phytochemical, whatever it may be. So I think, when you invest in those types of machines and extraction, it makes a huge difference. So at the very front end with cheap machinery, you don't know what's being left in there. You can't extract the bits that you want, never mind the sort of controlled drugs, talking sort of chlorophyll and lipids and everything else. But when you've got these machines, which, the 7-figure costs these machines to buy, we've got 2 of them in that facility. They're extremely precise. And, that's where I think it needs to go.
Very interesting. And moving now to the UK, just a couple of questions that I think you might be the perfect man to answer. On a scale of 1 to shit show, how bad is the novel food process currently at the moment?
This is the difficult one, because I've got to caveat it all by saying at the start, this has become so big so quickly as an industry. So to police it was always going to be incredibly difficult. Some of the decisions that have been made would not be what I'd do, Owen. I think it should be done at ingredient level for a start, that if you've got a safe raw ingredient, then, by putting it in a chocolate cookie that's been in the supply chain for 200-300 years is not going to make much of a difference. And so that would be my first thing. But what I would say is, there's so many people that have got into the industry, over the last few years. There's so many people that are looking at abusing the system as well, where, we were one of the first ones that got to the next stage on novel foods. And I think there was 74 businesses or 92 businesses originally on that first day that got across, or actually applications, of which we had 9. And then the pressure was put on the FSA from all sorts of different sources, more sort of documents submitted. So they had to take them through to the next stage and then let sort of discount them at the next sort of part of the process, which was never how it was meant to be. So I'm hoping it's going to be sorted soon, but I'm also not holding my breath.
Yeah. Do you think it's a case of, because Europe is so heavily influenced by the pharma industry, that the synthetic and the biosynthesized molecules are going to be the ones that they end up going, well, we know this is safe, this is replicable, this is going to be easier for us to manage than extracted plant matter?
Yeah, I think that does make it easier. But I think the problem with it is consumers don't want that product. They want a natural alternative that really works. And the vast majority of people in CBD believe in the entourage effect, and that it's the raw plant with, some of the other minor cannabinoids working together. So I don't actually think consumers want, so you're almost not solving the problem, because that people still want to buy the sort of natural alternatives. So I think there's, one of the things is that the industry hasn't done itself any favors as well by proving a lot of these things. And, some of them are massive money. If you're doing a global study and it's 25 million, that's, a lot of cash to fund. And there are some companies doing that, but unfortunately it's more at the sort of big pharma end. What we're doing at the moment is studies at universities. So we sponsor PhD courses and like prof.doc courses. And with that, we do studies about, urine buildup, how it works for sort of sleep with a blind placebo test and things like that. And I think we've got to build up the evidence as well as an industry to show how safe this product is and how well it works for people.
Yeah, I think the efficacy and the clinical trials and proving that statistics are going to outweigh just people's nuanced opinions on this. One or two questions on the UK. How realistic is the UK going to have an adult use cannabis market within the next 5 years?
So I think about 5 years would be a sort of timeline. At the moment, we're actually in the process of buying a pharmacy license and moving into Medcan ourselves. We're the same in Germany, where we've got a venture set up over there. And like, Germany's getting this recreational market, hopefully fully legalized in 12 months, in 2024, around then. And the more that I hear about it, and the more as time goes on, it just makes absolute sense, where, there's tax money to be made out of it as well. And it not to be the sort of shit show of the States as well. Excuse the French, but, they're federally illegal, heavily taxed per state. You can't move it interstate and everything else to sort of create proper commerce. So I do think we'll do it, but I think we're still sort of 5 years ago. We're definitely going to be behind the Germans and watching what they do, I think.
Yeah, the Czech Republic as well look like they might even steal a march on Germany with the coalition of politicians they've got at the moment.
Yeah, I spoke about this yesterday, actually, and that is going to be a really interesting one. We have a facility, one of our partners over in the Czech Republic, that make capsules for us, and incredible business. And they're looking into, they do a lot of CBD capsules now as well. And somebody like that is well placed in a market but that should be the UK, especially after we've Brexited and everything else. We should be the ones that are growing this with, CGMP farms that are exporting to all these European countries, and exporting now that we've taken it back. What didn't want a Brexit, I'm just going to say as well, but especially to an Irishman. But we've got to make the most of it now. If this is what we've done, then we've got to take the laws into our own hands and look at how we can. This industry is going to be enormous in 10 years' time. Never mind how big it is now. We're playing the long game here, and it's just going to get bigger and bigger as more places legalize. But if we don't get a move on, we'll be left behind. We'll be an importer instead of an exporter. The people who, aren't making the cash out of it are the ones who are supplying the cash to everybody else.
Yeah, you would have thought with the Tories being in power that they're very business friendly, and they facilitated the GW Pharma R&D that allowed the Jazz acquisition. I think Rishi Sunak just seems to be the worst possible person in charge at the worst possible time for the cannabis industry in the UK.
Yeah, and for me, I think it's a vote winner with the public, but without getting too political, the donors behind the Tory party and everything else, what's their sort of interests in allowing, sort of, have they got alcohol? Have they got pharma investments? All of these types of things and they're the guys that don't want this, the pharma guys, the alcohol to be pushed through.
Yeah, it seems to be that Europe is going to split into its own model, where it'll be social clubs a la Spain that'll start to dominate around Europe, and it'll be more non-for-profit organizations as opposed to profit-heavy dispensaries like Cookies and whatnot in the States. And then the other half of the industry is going to be applied pharmaceutical ingredients that are going to be pharma companies will take control of a couple of molecules and create a range of medicines from that. It seems to be there will be a massive divide between the two sectors.
Yeah, that's what I always say. Big pharma doesn't want you to grow your own medicine, do they?
No, not at all. Same way as McDonald's don't want to give you the recipe to their Big Mac. They want you to come in and eat the whole thing themselves.
Totally.
So tell me this, it's nearly 15 minutes. What are the things you're looking forward to over the next 12 to 24 months with you guys and all the projects you have working on?
So really excited about Medcan. That's really this year going to be a big focus for us in the different territories. CBD expansion into the Far East. We're already sort of trading in the Far East, but that's going to be further, and some of other wellness products. And we've just got so much good MPD that we've worked on over the last year, 2 years, that Some have been soft launched, some are into different territories, and we're going to expand that across everywhere. But I think that the big thing with that is because of the way novel foods worked and everything else, it's been a bit restrictive on NPD, whereas can't do it in the UK, but everywhere else is going to see some fantastic products coming this year.
Amazing. Well, it's great to talk to you, Paul. Hopefully we can chat up towards the end of the year and get an update on all the great things that are going to be happening with Naturecan and Medcan. But for now, thank you very much for your time, and it's a pleasure to chat to you.
Thanks very much for having me, Owen. Cheers. All the best.
Episode, everybody.